welcome to Darryl Company. I'm your host, Darryl Fess. Today, we have the privilege of talking to a person who has a dedication to healthcare. I'm impressed by his background with degrees from Princeton, Johns Hopkins, and Boston University. Dr. Charles Anderson is the president and CEO of the Dimock Center, a 159-year-old healthcare provider that plays a vital role in providing healthcare to low-income and minority communities in Boston. Dr. Anderson, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So, Dr. Anderson, the Dimock Center has been providing healthcare for over 150 years. What types of services do you provide?
Yes, we know over the 150 years, you have to remember that at one point, this was actually a hospital here. That was actually the hospital for women. And currently today, we're not a hospital, but we have a range of services that makes it feel like it sometimes. We provide pediatrics, OB. We provide a full range of adult medicine services. We provide dental, eye care. We provide behavioral health services, substance use disorder services. We also actually have an early intervention program and an early Head Start program on our campus as well. When I mentioned substance use disorder, we actually provide everything from detox to outpatient management and sober homes for recovery.
That is a full range of services that you offer to the community. It's impressive. One of your goals is to be a low-cost health provider in the community. How is Dimock funded? And more importantly, what can people do to help?
When we think about funding of federally qualified health centers, there's a big chunk of it that comes from the federal government. There's also a huge part of what we do that comes from our patient service revenue. As you mentioned, our patient service revenue is tied primarily to Medicaid, with some Medicare as well. But think about us as really very dependent on public funding from the standpoint of grants. And then the other huge component of our revenue here and allowing us to do our work is the wonderful support we get from organizations like Brookline Bank and just our amazing philanthropists who've been participating with the Dimock Center over decades. And many have had relationships that go back decades. So it's a combination of grant funding, federal dollars, and philanthropy.
Fantastic. There's been a lot of talk about racial inequity when it comes to healthcare, especially noted during the pandemic. Dimock is making inroads, but what more do we have to do?
Well, what's really critical is when we think about what we traditionally call health disparities. I think what this period has allowed us to understand that the real drivers of health disparity lie in racial inequity. When we think about health disparities, we often think about the fact that there are segments of our population who are experiencing poorer health outcomes, often because of differential access to healthy foods, differential access to safe places to go out and play if you're a kid. When you look at the different communities, it's amazing to think that in Roxbury, where we are, the average life expectancy is 59 years. If you just go over a few zip codes into the Back Bay, for example, I believe it's 92 years. So we understand more and more that this is really about such an uneven playing field that actually limits the type of access to critical wellness resources. When we talk about, as I mentioned, food, exercise space, and we go on and on. Education's another big one. But anytime you have this unevenness, we're starting to understand the direct connection between that and health outcomes. Many studies have shown the more you earn, the healthier you are. The more you earn, the longer you live. The more wealth you have correlates as well to how healthy you are. There's this correlation between wealth and health. And remember, we looked here in the Commonwealth and we found that, the wealth of African Americans was $8 compared to $200,000 for white people in the Commonwealth. You know, those are the things that we think about racial inequity. Those are the things that create this uneven playing field so that when we have something like we're dealing with now, this pandemic, there are those who are going to be so much more vulnerable.
It's fascinating, and it makes you think, because we all should be thinking. And these things that we don't all start out on a level playing field certainly end up causing health problems later down the road, which is terribly unfortunate. And we'll make progress on that as a world.
And we're having the conversations, which is a critical part of it. We weren't having these conversations before. I've had more wonderful organizations reach out to me, like Brookline Bank, and say, how can we be helpful here? What can we do? We now understand, we see this differently. That's the place you start. And it's so important. That is how we're going to make a difference here. It's really through these partnerships, through these relationships, and through conversation that's allowing us to see each individual as a real person. And I think that's what's critical. But one point I would be really remiss if I didn't emphasize here is the fact that we often look at this thing in our individual silos. It's that, okay, I'm sitting here and my health is just fine. And this seems to be a problem that another community is suffering from. This virus has helped us understand how interconnected we are. If we can't figure out how to get to vaccine confidence in our communities right here around where we sit in the Dimock Center, we're going to just have more and more variants of this virus. The more variants we have of this virus is going to affect everybody. So we realize how interconnected we are. So it's really critical that we all understand these issues of trying to create an even playing field so that everyone has the opportunity to live a healthy life impacts all of us.
It's a great goal. It's a great mission. And the little part that we can all play, I think adds up and is very important. Talking about like being people, these are stressful times for everyone. As a person, how are you trying to keep things in check for yourself?
Well, for myself, it's how do I keep things in check for myself? Well, oddly enough, one of the big one, as crazy as this may sound, is to be sitting here doing what I'm currently doing. I have a 14-year-old who keeps me in check. When my 14-year-old and I had conversations about all the things that we witnessed in 2020, I found myself thinking, when he's 18, what is he going to say his dad did when all of that was going on? So a lot of that drives me to come to this place where I know that doing the work that we're doing together is going to make a huge difference and put us on the right side of history. So that's really, really important and keeps me going and fuels my tank, because I also believe, like my wife would tell us with her amazing work she does as a surgeon, but also as a children's book author who promotes these habits of positivity. Habit of positivity is number one. Habit of positivity number one is, for every problem, there's a solution. You just have to work to find it. And participating in that solution work is really something that keeps me going.
That's fantastic. And I'm sure that when your son turns 18, he's going to be very proud of what his stepfather did during these times. So Dr. Anderson, thank you very much for joining us. This was a fascinating chat. I think, I hope a lot of people, think about what's happening in the world from this conversation. So thanks for joining us on Darryl Company.
Thank you for having me, Darryl, and thanks again for Brookline Bank. And remember, people looking for any more information about the Dimock Center can always go to dimock.org.
Perfect. Thanks to all of you for joining Darryl Company.